guarantee that if you just do the next right indicated action and just show up and start to do this work, it's going to work out better than you could ever imagine.
Firstly, there are 3 types of stress that impact our physical well-being. Physical stress from accidents or injuries, chemical stress from toxins or pollutants, and emotional stress, often stemming from personal challenges and traumas. These stressors disrupt our body's natural balance, pushing it out of homeostasis. Normally, our body strives to return to this balanced state through its autonomic nervous system. However, if we repeatedly knock it out of balance, the new imbalanced state becomes the norm, setting the stage for illness. When it comes to physical trauma, our body can heal with rest. For chemical imbalances, we may need pharmaceuticals or supplements to restore equilibrium. However, emotional stress, which affects a significant percentage of people seeking healthcare, is a complex matter. It's linked to a range of negative emotions such as anger, hatred, fear, and anxiety, which, when prolonged, can trigger the onset of disease. The fascinating aspect is that our body can't differentiate between real-life experiences causing these emotions and those created solely by our thoughts. The body responds the same way, believing it's under constant threat or in a state of emergency. This constant state of stress, triggered by our thoughts, eventually leads to physical illness. So yes, our thoughts can indeed make us sick. Now, if our thoughts can make us sick, could they also make us well? Absolutely. But to achieve this, we need to manage our attention and energy carefully. Where we direct our focus is where we channel our energy. We must learn to control and change the thoughts that have conditioned our bodies to respond negatively. This is the essence of the mind-body.
In order to do that, we have to shift out of the things that we have come to believe in, and everything that you came to this program watching tonight that you believe in was handed to you by someone else outside of you, was handed to you by the experiences or testimony of someone in the past, and because it comes from outside of you, there is still an element of doubt. And this element of doubt isn't bad, but it keeps you from reaching higher levels because what you think about is what expands. And if you're thinking doubt, then doubt is what expands. William Blake said, if the sun and moon should ever doubt, they would immediately go out. So how do we get past what we believe in or what has been handed to us and still honor it and be grateful for all of the teachers and all of the people who have come before us? So what we have to learn to do is let go of that tribal consciousness and shift to what I call a knowing. Now there's a big difference between what you believe and what you know. Everything that you know is something that you have made conscious contact with. Conscious contact. So there's nobody out there watching, there's nobody in this world who knows how to swim, who learned it by somebody else telling them that you can swim, or by watching Mark Spitz go through the water, or by observing other people doing it. You may remove some of the doubt, but you will never know how to swim until you get in the water and blub around a few times and then do it. And then you'll have a knowing, and that knowing is something that you'll never lose, just like riding a bicycle or dancing the Macarena or making a lemon meringue pie or anything that you know how to do. It's because you've made conscious contact. And I'd like to suggest that there's a big difference between knowing about a divine presence, knowing about a sacred awareness, knowing about God, and knowing God. There's a big difference. Just like there's a big difference between knowing about the possibility of being able to heal myself of something that is bothering me, perhaps a disease process. I perhaps may believe that it's possible because I've read other people and I've heard others say it. And I've read the testimony and I've listened to the tapes and I've gone to the seminars. But until you have made conscious contact with it, you'll never.
People have shared numerous testimonials of being diagnosed with chronic health conditions and experiencing improvement through meditation and elevated emotional states. However, some individuals find that after meditation, they spend the next several hours in fear and frustration. This happens when they unconsciously return to their old thought patterns and emotional states. Thus, It's vital to practice being in these elevated states with your eyes open to carry this transformation into your daily life. Walking meditations, a key component of our work, teach you to maintain this state while facing external challenges. You need to become so proficient at this practice that you can maintain it even in adverse situations. This is where you truly demonstrate your mastery over your emotional states. It's not enough to meditate with your eyes closed. You must also apply this state with your eyes open. So the process involves examining your reactions to various stimuli like your ex-partner, financial challenges, or distressing news. You recognize that there must be another way to respond, one that doesn't weaken you. You rehearse these new behaviors, effectively rewiring your brain to adopt them as your default responses. Through repetition, your brain will perceive these actions as natural, and they will become automatic. By consistently practicing these changes in emotional states and responses, you're rewriting your internal script. You're creating a new version of yourself, one that aligns with your desired future. This process involves molding your beliefs and behaviors, so they reflect the person you aim to become. Thoughts that consistently wire together become your new reality, as your brain no longer distinguishes them from actual experiences. Ultimately, feeling the emotions associated with your desired future before it materializes is the key to believing in that future.
I had a really turbulent childhood with a lot of childhood trauma, and I always hated myself. I always was a victim to my environment. And I used drugs and alcohol, and I was suicidal. First time I tried to kill myself, I was 7 years old. And I always got this messaging that I was sick because I had illnesses as a child. And what ended up happening is 10 years ago, I got sober. And that was like the first time in my life where I stopped being a victim. I did the steps and I was like, oh, okay, wow, I have hope for a future. Because I actually was going to commit suicide. And, but I still had suicidal thoughts. I would be okay and then I wouldn't be okay. And then 3 years ago, in 2019, I got sick. And I was, the stressful thing happened and it just, I was obsessed with it. I would be like, what's wrong with me? I was covered head to toe in rashes and my mental health was not good. And I was just covered head to toe on fire. And I would go to the doctors and they would be like, oh, well, it's stress. And, I don't know what's really wrong with you. And so, it kept happening and happening. And then this one person tested something in my blood and they were like, oh my God, you have severe mold toxicity. You have the worst mold I've ever seen. And so that put me on this thing where I surrendered and believed that I had severe mold toxicity. And then I just became really scared of my environment. And I would be obsessed with looking at, all the things of mold and what's wrong. And, oh, well, I used to have Lyme disease and they're saying that's reactivated. And, oh, Epstein-Barr. And I would just be obsessed. But I was so scared of everything that I would spend thousands of dollars on tests for dust samples to see if there was going to be mold somewhere. I couldn't, go anywhere. And everyone around me, I became just constantly saying the story over and over again. I'm this victim and they don't know how to treat it. And I have to take this, but they don't know. And then, because I had breast implants, I was like, oh, how am I so poisoned with mold? Maybe it's the breast implants. So I got those out. And then my blood work was actually worse. And then this doctor was like, you are so sick that the lab called to see if I was treating you in the hospital. And he was going through my blood work and being like, how are you so sick? How are you so sick? And that was the moment where I believed that and everything just kept getting worse. Somebody told me about Dr. Joe and I downloaded You Are the Placebo and I started listening to it and I was like, oh my God, this is it. It's my thoughts. It was like that aha light bulb moment where I just knew that I created this because even though I thought I was doing better or my life was okay, once my sickness started and I kept getting worse and worse, I knew it was my thoughts constantly creating that. And I thought that if my thoughts could make me sick, then they could also make me well. And I just would listen to the book. And then I would watch the testimonials and I would be like, okay, this is my shot. This is what's gonna change my life. And I ended up exactly a year ago I turned 10 years sober this past Saturday, but a year ago, I ended up coming to Cancun, and my room they gave me was like all the way at the end, and I was limping, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to walk? Like, I'm gonna have to ask them for a different room. And then I was like trying to think of a placebo and but hobbling and then so afraid of my knee coming out. Like, oh my God, what if my knee is gonna come out? And then they're gonna have an ambulance come into the event. And I was just so like trying to, overcome my body. And the first walking meditation, I don't know what happened, but I was bawling my eyes out like hysterically. And I made a decision with the amplitude greater than whatever that was. And I was like, I can walk. And then I was walking like I was Naomi Campbell on the runway, like through the ocean. And I was just like, oh my God, I could walk. And I was just bawling my eyes out. And then I just made that decision. I can walk. And then the event just kept getting better and better. And I just started to really connect to the divine and love myself and met incredible people. And I felt my energy just rising and I was manifesting things and I knew I was changed. In Nashville, I ended up being a healie. And the first healing, again, I was kind of a little nervous and scared. And he said, all I want you to do is be open to possibility. And I just laid there. And I was just like, I am open to possibility. And the healing ended. And I honestly felt like I took 10 e-pills. And as I said, I'm 9 years sober at the time. I know what ecstasy is like. And I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, I went back home and I tested my blood and the mold was like 80% gone. My liver was normal for the first time in 3 years. And my life just kept getting better and better. I can't even imagine thinking about suicide. I can't even that seems so insane to me now. And I just have so much compassion and so much love for that person that, went through that. And I am grateful. And when he says that, like when you're grateful for your past and everything that you went through, like every single thing led me to here right now. And I know that deeply. I want things that I never thought were possible. Like I believe, like I used to have a different belief, a negative belief, this victim mentality. And now I just truly believe at the depths of my soul that I am completely unlimited. I'm connected to source and the most wild, unexpected things happen. And I'm just so grateful